I am so happy to be here tonight. I can't tell you, I think this is such a wonderful way for us to come together. I've wanted to share what I've learned in my journey. I think it's been very meaningful because although the film that you saw was about Muslim women, I was born an Orthodox Jew, and I was raised with very strict concepts of honor and what would bring shame to the family. When I was 4 or 5 years old and it was the Jewish New Year, there is a 10-day period where you atone for your sins. And my sin was I had to figure out how many times I hated my brother. And I had to write that down because if I didn't remember, God was going to write it down and carry it to the following year, and then I would have even more to remember. So I was a very hypervigilant child, always aware of what I would do that would make God upset. And my father, being so religious, maintained that. When I was 15, actually 15 and a half, we moved from Philadelphia to LA, and I fell in love with a Greek baseball player. And he was the most glorious, handsome, exciting person I'd ever seen. And my father said to me, I want you to know, if you were to ever marry out of your faith, I will cover the mirrors, I will tear my clothes, your name will never be mentioned again in this family. You will have not existed for us. And it was so devastating. I was the firstborn and a bright child, pretty. None of it mattered. I was out. And what was the most painful thing besides the idea of my father betraying me, in terms of believing that he would always be there because he knew everything and he was the direct voice of what God thought was right and wrong, was that it would be about somebody who worshiped God differently. I couldn't work that in my mind. Something happened in me that said, that's just not acceptable. That's just not acceptable, that you are going to give up your daughter and say that I had brought shame to the family because I didn't marry a Jew, and to marry a Christian would mean that I was gone. So something happened internally with me and my thinking process, and a rebellion that I'd never really allowed myself to have became part of me. And then I went on a quest, and I will just finish this part of the story. I cried for 2 days in my room. I wouldn't come out. I wouldn't eat. I just laid there crying. And my father came in at the end of 2 days, and he said to me, all right, I won't disown you. I won't cover the mirrors, sit Shiva for you. But there will never be a day in my life that I will not suffer the pain of your choice. So I looked at how I really felt, and on the one hand it was good that I had, I could pass go and maybe marry out of my faith without being disowned. The second was the burden of the shame and the guilt. And I became aware of how people accepted that a choice made, any choice of freedom, was interpreted by this God that was male, would determine whether or not I had the right to be happy, be free, explore a new idea. So by the time I was 16, 17 years old, I studied Catholicism, and of course I did it on the side, but I did. And I actually even thought of converting for a while, but there was too much too many things there that didn't work either. And then I went to Buddhism and just went on a quest. And the quest was, how do I come into my freedom? And interestingly enough, when I was in New York, because I moved to New York, I fell in love with a man that I did eventually marry for 19 years. But this man met me when I owned a personnel agency, which was quite nice for him, he thought. And I became interested in astrology. Well, astrology was absolutely unacceptable. In fact, it was so unacceptable that if the subject came up, he would get up and leave the room to show me his displeasure. But interestingly enough, by this time, that seemed a lot lighter than being disowned. So I said, not only am I going to be an astrologer, but you are going to eat it because I'm going to be one of the best. And interestingly enough, I did become very well known, and he was one of my biggest supporters. But that's the aside. What I was wanting to show you is that in this journey of my younger years, the idea that you had to figure out a way, thank you. That you had to figure out a way to please a man and be free at the same time. And I was good. I mean, I figured out a lot of ways to make it seem that they were being attended to, the men in my life, at the same time working my own sense of freedom. And it took me many years, and actually I would say the most profound part of it was after I met Ramtha, a teacher that really helped me to understand that God was consciousness. God was a spirit that wasn't a personality, and I realized how profoundly trained I was ingrained with the persona of the male as being the voice that said what was right, what was wrong, and also being a woman programmed to be desirable. You have to look a certain way, you have to find ways to be desirable so that you would get married, so that there would be somebody who wanted you. The idea of being alone, I'm in my 70s, so in those days, the idea of being alone without a partner was, you know, you're a spinster. You don't have, and it was all alien. And inside of me was, this is a lie. This is wrong. But until I understood truly that God was spirit of consciousness and combined, gave us, it's like I was asked once, what is God's love? And it was God saying, I am consciousness and energy. I offer this to you. Make of me what you will. This is my gift. And this is what I came to see as the evolution that we're all now coming into. When 2012 happened and we all said, okay, it's the end of separation and the beginning of wholeness and unity, we're moving swiftly. But as we move into this new paradigm, you can see the chaos. You can see the tremendous upheavals and the fear, the huge fear that people have of letting go and trusting themselves. So I had a lot of forgiveness to do. And a lot of the forgiveness was that I had not trusted myself. I had learned the ways of saying things that were more acceptable. I had learned how to communicate in ways that were self-deceptive. And I had to come to terms with it. I had to finally say that I would allow myself to be free and not seek permission to be great, or seek permission to be a fool, or seek permission to absolutely be different. And I understood that one of the reasons why women suffer so is that they have developed willful blindness. Willful blindness says, I won't see your flaw. I'll say it's something else. I'll prop you up and I'll protect you and you'll look better. And when you look better, I'll look better. I will have the proper family. I will have the proper alignment, and I will make excuses for you, and I will make excuses for me, and we won't be telling the truth, but everybody will think that we're doing splendidly. That willful blindness allows for spousal abuse. It allows for parental abuse. It is something that we learned because we're afraid of not being defined by our family, by our friends, by the cultural hierarchy of somebody who says this is how we're supposed to be, this is who we're supposed to look like. The prejudice against women goes across all cultures, and it goes across all religions. I'm touched by what a man has to sacrifice in order to be this kind of oppressor. He has to close off his heart. He has to no longer have compassion for the sadness, the cries of a woman. He has to tell himself that he's the one that decides what's right and what's wrong. The price he pays for that must be extraordinary. I know that was true with my father. My father suffered, died of cancer. My mother had cancer 11 years. My younger sister died of cancer. They all died from that suppression and that absolute inability to be able to authentically share what it was that they really felt, because it had to fit into this image of what is honored in a hierarchy that is created by maybe 1% of the people in the world, those super powerful individuals, whatever name you want to give to them, some side of the Illuminati or the gray men or the tyrants, but we allowed it. We said, we'll cover for you. We'll make you look better. We'll tell you how handsome you are with all your money, and we'll support your causes, because we're afraid of trusting ourselves. I have a phrase I use, I like it a lot. I learned it from Bishop Jakes, really cool guy. He said, forgiveness is a decision, but trust is a construction. I find it profound, because when we break trust with another, you can't just give it back. It takes time. You have to build it again. And when you destroy trust with yourself, when you lie to yourself and you say it's okay, it's all right that that person hurt me. It's all right that they abused my trust. It's all right that they lied to me. I understand it was hard for them. No, it's not all right. It's not all right when I do it, and it's not all right when they do it. And if it is true that in standing for myself, I stand alone, that's an illusion. I'm never alone. No one is ever alone. We are always connected, and we always belong to something so much greater than ourselves. I was honored when Renee asked me to be a part of this, because I so support her dream. I support everyone's dream that wants to bring us together with a new mind and a new attitude, and the opportunity for us to remember what it is to honor ourselves and know if we can dream the dream the way Sonia did of freedom, or the way I did when I questioned religion and questioned a God that could just kill people because they were in his way. I mean, what kind of God is that I'm praying to? But I had no other. I had nothing else to go to. And what I've discovered in my sojourn is we never give up what's wrong until we have something that works for us better, because we always do what works for us. So I say thank you so much for allowing me to share. I believe we're in a precious time right now. And as hard as it is with all the chaos, with the sun flares and the wars and the environmental problems, we are dreamers, we're creators. We know how to envision. And in that vision, we're learning how to let go and just go. And in that, we'll be led. I know it. Thank you so much.
Pretty women wonder where my secret lies. I'm not cute, built to suit a fashion model size. But when I start to tell them, they think I'm telling lies. Oh, it's in the reach of my arms, the span of my hips, the stride in my steps, the curve